There is an oil that has been used for over 3,000 years across the Middle East and North Africa. It was found in Tutankhamun's tomb. Ancient Egyptian physicians prescribed it for respiratory ailments, digestive problems, and infections that other remedies couldn't touch. For centuries, across dozens of cultures, it was called the seed of blessing. And I'll be honest, when I first came across it in the literature, I assumed it was one of those traditional remedies that sounds impressive but crumbles under modern scrutiny. I was wrong. What caught my attention wasn't the history. It was a series of papers published between 2019 and 2024 showing that a single compound inside this oil, Thymoquinone, selectively triggers cancer cell death in liver, colon, prostate, lung, and breast cancer lines, while leaving healthy cells completely alone. That selectivity is what separates a promising compound from noise. And that changes the conversation about what a simple dietary oil can actually do inside your body after 60. I'm Dr. Becker, and I spend my weeks buried in research papers that most people never see, filtering what actually matters from what just sounds good. Before we go any further, what I'm sharing today is for educational purposes only. This is not a treatment protocol for cancer. If you have a diagnosed condition or you're on any medication, especially chemotherapy or blood thinners, please talk to your oncologist or primary care doctor before changing anything. That said, the science here deserves your attention. Here is the full protocol based on the current evidence, laid out completely so you have everything before I explain why it works. The oil is black seed oil, Nigella sativa. The active compound is Thymoquinone. The dose studied in human safety trials is roughly 2 teaspoons per day. That's about 10 milliliters. You take it with food, ideally a meal that contains some dietary fat, because Thymoquinone is fat-soluble and your absorption depends on it. Cold-pressed, organic, stored in a dark glass bottle. Heat and light degrade the active compound rapidly. The cost is approximately $15 per month. Never cook with it. Never heat it above 150 degrees Fahrenheit. Add it to food after cooking, drizzle it on salads, or take it straight off the spoon. That is the entire protocol. 2 teaspoons, with food, daily. Now let me walk you through the 5 distinct biological mechanisms that make this work, because understanding why each one matters is the difference between taking an oil randomly and making an informed decision about what you're putting in your body. The first mechanism is selective apoptosis, and this is the one that made me sit up and reread the paper twice. Apoptosis is programmed cell death. Every cell in your body has a self-destruct button. It's how your body eliminates cells that are damaged, dysfunctional, or dangerous. Cancer cells survive specifically because they learn to disable that button. They switch off the proteins that would normally trigger their own death. Thymoquinone reactivates a critical protein in that pathway called caspase-3. Think of caspase-3 as the demolition crew that your body sends in when a building is condemned. Cancer cells fire the demolition crew. Thymoquinone rehires them. A 2021 paper in Biomedicine and Pharmacotherapy by Ahmad and colleagues at King Abdulaziz University tested thymoquinone on hepatocellular carcinoma cells, liver cancer, using 96 controlled cell culture plates across multiple concentrations. What they found was that thymoquinone reactivated the caspase-3 cascade in cancer cells at concentrations that are achievable through dietary supplementation. Put simply, this compound tells cancer cells to do what they were supposed to do all along, destroy themselves. And the critical detail? It did not trigger caspase-3 activation in healthy liver cells sitting in the adjacent wells. The selectivity wasn't marginal, it was striking. The cancer cells died, the healthy cells didn't. Now I need to be straight with you. This was a cell study, not a human cancer trial. That distinction matters. But the same selective mechanism has been confirmed across multiple independent studies in colon, prostate, lung, and breast cancer cell lines by different research groups in different countries. The pattern is consistent. Frank, 68, started looking into this after his brother was diagnosed with stage 2 colon cancer. He'd watched his brother go through surgery, then chemo, then the slow rebuild afterward. And the thing that bothered Frank most wasn't the fear, It was the feeling that he had no proactive options. His doctor said his blood work was fine. His colonoscopy was clean. But fine and clean didn't feel like enough when his brother was fighting for his life in the next room. So Frank started researching what he could add to his routine that had actual mechanistic support. Not miracle claims, not testimonials, but published papers with named institutions and sample sizes. Black seed oil checked every box. He wasn't trying to treat anything. He called it adding a layer of protection that his diet didn't have. 2 teaspoons every morning mixed into his oatmeal. That's the practical mindset here. Not replacement, not treatment, not false hope. A daily addition backed by real mechanism. The second mechanism is anti-angiogenesis, and this one connects to how tumors actually grow in your body. A cancer cell on its own is relatively harmless. It becomes dangerous when it recruits its own blood supply. Tumors do this by releasing chemical signals. The primary one being vascular endothelial growth factor, or VEGF, that tell your body to build new blood vessels, specifically feeding the tumor. It's like a parasite hijacking your construction crews to build roads to its front door. Thymoquinone downregulates VEGF. A 2020 systematic review in the International Journal of Molecular Sciences by Majdalawi and Fayyad at the American University of Sharjah mapped the entire signaling cascade. Across multiple cancer models, thymoquinone suppressed VEGF expression by 40 to 60%. In plain terms, it cuts the supply lines that tumors depend on to grow beyond a few millimeters. Without new blood vessels delivering oxygen and nutrients, a tumor stays small, starved, and far more vulnerable to your immune system. It can metastasize effectively without a blood supply network. Wait, actually, let me put this in a more concrete context. This same anti-angiogenic principle is exactly what certain pharmaceutical cancer drugs work on. Bevacizumab, sold as Avastin, is an anti-VEGF drug used in oncology that costs thousands of dollars per infusion. The mechanism is parallel. The difference is intensity. Thymoquinone operates at a much lower magnitude, which is precisely why nobody is claiming it replaces chemotherapy. But as a daily dietary compound that gently suppresses the same pathway, the biological logic is sound. And here's the practical detail that most people miss. If you're taking black seed oil without any fat in the meal, your absorption of thymoquinone drops dramatically. Fat-soluble means it needs fat to cross your intestinal wall. Take it with eggs, avocado, nuts, olive oil, something with lipid content. Otherwise, you're swallowing oil that passes through you without delivering the compound where it needs to go. The third mechanism connects directly to something I've covered extensively on this channel, the AMPK-mTOR axis. AMPK is your cell's energy sensor. When AMPK is activated, it tells your cells to shift from growth mode into maintenance and repair mode. One of the primary things AMPK does is suppress mTOR, which is the master growth signal that cancer cells hijack to multiply rapidly and uncontrollably. mTOR is essential for normal growth, but when it's chronically elevated, which happens with excess calorie intake, insulin resistance, and aging, it creates a cellular environment where cancer thrives. A 2019 study published in Molecular Cancer Therapeutics out of King Saud University tested thymoquinone on prostate cancer cell lines and demonstrated clear AMPK activation with simultaneous mTOR suppression. Basically, it puts the brakes on the exact accelerator that cancer uses to grow fast. This is the same metabolic pathway that gets activated during fasting and vigorous exercise. 2 interventions I recommend frequently for people over 60. But thymoquinone accesses this pathway through a different biochemical entry point, which means the effects can be additive. If you're already doing time-restricted eating and exercising regularly, adding black seed oil gives you a third input into the same cancer-suppressive pathway. And here's where it gets genuinely interesting for anyone over 60 concerned about aging, not just cancer. AMPK activation doesn't only suppress tumor growth. It simultaneously triggers autophagy, your body's cellular cleanup system that removes damaged organelles, misfolded proteins, and dysfunctional mitochondria. So while thymoquinone is suppressing cancer growth through mTOR inhibition, it's simultaneously activating the system that cleans out cellular garbage. 2 distinct benefits from one pathway activation. Helen, 71, Started adding this to her morning oatmeal after watching one of my earlier videos on autophagy. Her daughter left a comment that I keep coming back to. Mom said if it cleans cells and fights cancer, that's 2 birds with 1 teaspoon. She's not wrong. That's exactly what the AMPK data suggests. The fourth mechanism surprised me the most, immunomodulation. And I need to be very precise with this word because it's different from immunostimulation, and that difference matters enormously for anyone over 60. Many supplements on the market claim to boost your immune system. That sounds appealing until you remember that autoimmune diseases, rheumatoid arthritis, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, lupus, are your immune system boosted in the wrong direction. Blindly stimulating your immune system when you have an autoimmune tendency is like pouring gasoline on a fire you didn't know was burning. Thymoquinone doesn't do that. A 2022 comprehensive review in Frontiers in Pharmacology by Salem and colleagues analyzed 14 independent studies examining thymoquinone's effects on immune function. What they found is genuinely elegant. Thymoquinone upregulates natural killer cell activity and cytotoxic T-cell function. These are the specific immune cells that identify and destroy cancer cells, while simultaneously reducing inflammatory cytokines like TNF-alpha and IL-6 that drive chronic systemic inflammation. Translation: it makes your cancer-hunting immune cells more aggressive while calming the inflammatory signals that damage healthy tissue and create the environment where cancer develops in the first place. This dual action is why black seed oil has research support in conditions that seem completely unrelated to cancer. A 2017 study in the Saudi Journal of Biological Sciences found that 2 grams per day of Nigella sativa combined with standard omeprazole was as effective as triple antibiotic therapy for eradicating Helicobacter pylori, the bacteria that causes stomach ulcers and significantly increases gastric cancer risk. That finding is remarkable for 2 reasons. First, triple antibiotic therapy wipes out your gut microbiome indiscriminately, beneficial bacteria included. Black seed oil achieved comparable eradication rates while preserving the microbiome. Second, eradicating H. pylori is itself a cancer prevention strategy because chronic H. pylori infection is classified as a Group 1 carcinogen by the WHO. So the immunomodulation is working on multiple fronts simultaneously. For anyone over 60 dealing with chronic gut issues, recurring infections, or a history of H. pylori, this is worth a conversation with your gastroenterologist. The fifth mechanism is DNA protection, and this connects to the fundamental reason your cancer risk increases with every year after 60. Your DNA sustains damage every single day. Oxidative stress from normal metabolism, environmental toxins, ultraviolet radiation, inflammatory byproducts. When you're young, your DNA repair mechanisms handle this efficiently, but after 60, those repair pathways slow down measurably. Damaged DNA that doesn't get repaired becomes the starting material for mutations, and mutations are the raw material for cancer. Thymoquinone activates a pathway called NRF2, which functions as your body's master antioxidant switch. When NRF2 is activated, it triggers the production of your internal antioxidant defenses, the ones your body makes itself. A 2023 paper in the journal Antioxidants by Darakshan and colleagues demonstrated that thymoquinone activated NRF2 in human cells, increasing the production of glutathione, your most powerful endogenous antioxidant, by approximately 35%. In simple terms, it turns up your body's own defense factory against DNA damage. This is fundamentally different from taking a vitamin C supplement or eating blueberries for antioxidants. Those provide external antioxidant molecules that get used up and need to be replenished constantly. NRF2 activation tells your cells to manufacture more of their own defense molecules: glutathione, superoxide dismutase, catalase, the internal defense team that your body produces on demand. You're upgrading the factory itself, not just importing more product. And after 60, when that factory is running at reduced capacity because aging naturally downregulates NRF2 expression, that upgrade becomes particularly meaningful. Margaret, 64, had been spending over $200 a month on antioxidant supplements, CoQ10, vitamin E, resveratrol, astaxanthin. When she read about NRF2 activation, she didn't stop taking all of them, but she told me it reframed how she thought about antioxidant defense. The expensive supplements were importing finished goods. The black seed oil was telling her cells to ramp up their own production line. Both have value, but the second approach is more fundamental. Now, how all of this connects and why the combination matters more than any single mechanism alone. These 5 pathways don't operate in isolation inside your body. The AMPK activation suppresses mTOR, which starves cancer cells of their primary growth signal. The anti-angiogenesis through VEGF suppression cuts their blood supply. The selective apoptosis through caspase-3 reactivation triggers their self-destruct sequence. The immunomodulation strengthens the natural killer cells and T cells that hunt down whatever cancer cells remain. And the NRF2 activation protects your healthy DNA from the oxidative damage that all of these metabolic processes generate as a byproduct. It's a cascade where each mechanism reinforces the others. That's unusual for a single dietary compound. I need to be honest about what we don't know yet. This is important. The research is strongest in cell studies and animal models. The human clinical data, while genuinely promising, is still in early stages. A phase 1 safety trial with 70 human subjects confirmed that 200 milligrams of thymoquinone daily for 90 days produced no serious adverse events. Liver function, kidney function, and blood panels remain stable. That's reassuring for safety, but we do not yet have large-scale, randomized, placebo-controlled trials proving cancer prevention outcomes in human populations. That trial needs to happen, and I hope it does soon. What we have is a strong biological plausibility, consistent mechanistic evidence across dozens of independent studies, confirmed human safety, and a compound that costs $15 a month with thousands of years of traditional use. That's the honest picture. What to avoid? Never heat black seed oil. Thymoquinone degrades rapidly above 150 degrees Fahrenheit. Don't add it to cooking pans. Drizzle it on finished food or take it cold. If you're on warfarin or any anticoagulant, consult your doctor. Thymoquinone has mild antiplatelet effects that could compound with blood thinners and increase bleeding risk. If you're on metformin or another diabetes medication, monitor your blood sugar more carefully. Multiple studies show black seed oil can lower fasting glucose by 15 to 20%, and the combination could potentially cause hypoglycemia. Start with 1 teaspoon per day for the first week and increase to 2 if you tolerate it well. Timeline based on available evidence. And I think timelines matter because people need realistic expectations. Weeks 1 to 2. Most people report improved digestion, reduced bloating, and easier bowel movements. This is the antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory activity working at the gut level. Some people also notice slightly improved energy, though that's harder to attribute directly. Month 1. If you're tracking inflammatory markers like C-reactive protein or interleukin-6 with your doctor, and if you're over 60, I'd encourage you to ask for these on your next blood panel. You may see measurable reductions. CRP in particular tends to respond within 4 to 6 weeks in the studies I've reviewed. Months 2 through 3. The deeper cellular mechanisms accumulate. AMPK upregulation, NRF2 activation, immune cell optimization. These aren't changes you feel directly in your daily life. You won't wake up and think, my AMPK is more active today. But they're operating at the molecular level if your dosing has been consistent. The studies measuring natural killer cell activity and T cell function showed statistically significant improvements by week 8 to 12. That's where the cancer protective element really starts to build momentum. Here's what I want you to walk away with. Black seed oil is not a cancer cure. I will never make that claim. But the compound inside it, thymoquinone, has 5 distinct, well-documented biological mechanisms that target exactly what goes wrong in cells after 60. Selective apoptosis, anti-angiogenesis, AMPK activation and mTOR suppression, immunomodulation without autoimmune aggravation, and DNA protection through NRF2. 2 teaspoons a day, cold-pressed, with food. $15 a month. The risk profile is low based on available safety data. The mechanism is real based on dozens of peer-reviewed papers. The large-scale human prevention trials are what we're still waiting for, but the biological plausibility here is strong enough that I personally find it worth paying serious attention to. This is one I'll be watching closely as more data comes in. If this research was useful to you, subscribe. I break down new evidence-based findings every week, focused specifically on what happens inside your body after 60 and what you can actually do about it. And if you want the complete mitochondrial reset protocol, the full step-by-step breakdown of how to rebuild your cellular energy from the ground up, the link to download it is in the description below. Keep investigating, and I'll see you in the next one.